Okay, part three of Orwell's Shooting an Elephant analysis. We're on page 4, paragraph 4. And it says the Burmese sub-inspector and some Indian constables, police officers, were waiting for me in the quarter where the elephant had been seen. It was a very poor quarter, a labyrinth of squalid bamboo huts, so a maze of poor huts, if you will, thatched with palm leaf, winding all over a steep hillside. I remember that it was a cloudy, stuffy morning at the beginning of the rains. We began questioning the people as to where the elephant had gone and, as usual, failed to get any definite information. That is invariably the case in the East. The story always sounds clear enough at a distance, but the nearer you get to the scene of events, the vaguer it becomes. You can relate to that. If someone tells a story or some gossip to someone else, who tells it to someone else, who tells it to someone else, 3 or 4 times removed, it's probably a little bit different story, exaggerated one way or the other. And that's what is happening as far as Orwell's police work on finding this elephant is concerned. Some of the people said that the elephant had gone in one direction. Some said that he had gone in another. Some professed not even to have heard any elephant. So again, Orwell's thesis was that the information was vague. Did he give us specific examples to show that the information was vague? Yes, 3 instances of what people actually said. I had almost made up my mind that the whole story was a pack of lies when we heard yells a little distance away. There was a loud, scandalized cry of, "Go away, child! Go away this instant!" And an old woman with a switch in her hand, like a brush that functions as a shooer away, a whip, if you will, broomish, if you will, and her hand came round the corner of a hut, violently shooing away a crowd of naked children. Some more women followed, clicking their tongues and exclaiming evidently there was something that the children ought not to have seen. I rounded the hut and saw a man's dead body sprawling in the mud. He was an Indian, a black Dravidian coolie. A coolie, we know, someone who works for very little, slave-like. Almost naked, and he could not have been dead many minutes. The people said that the elephant had come suddenly upon him round the corner of the hut, caught him with its trunk, put its foot on his back, and ground him into the earth. Pretty nasty way to die. This was the rainy season, and the ground was soft, and his face had scored a trench a foot deep and a couple of yards long. He was lying on his belly with arms crucified and head sharply twisted to one side. His face was coated with mud, the eyes wide open, the teeth bared and grinning with an expression of unendurable agony. Never tell me, by the way, that the dead look peaceful. Most of the corpses I have seen looked devilish. Why does Orwell use the term devilish? We can certainly speculate. Where do we find devils in Christian anthology? It's what? It's in hell, right? Burma, very squalid, very poor. The way he's being treated refers to the people as beasts. Is it hell on earth for Orwell? Possibly. And people will look like devils, even in death. The friction of the great beast's foot had stripped the skin from his back as neatly as one skins a rabbit. Yuck. Think about skinning a rabbit. This is what this man looked like, the skin taken off of his back. Can't imagine. Orwell using a simile to get the picture to us. Simile, of course, a comparison using like or as. So, as neatly as one skins a rabbit, a simile there to paint the picture for us. Good use of literary devices. As soon as I saw the dead man, I sent an orderly to a friend's house nearby to borrow an elephant rifle. I had already sent back the pony, not wanting it to go mad with fright and throw me if it smelt the elephant. The orderly came back in a few minutes with a rifle and 5 cartridges, and meanwhile some Burmans had arrived and told us that the elephant was in the paddy fields below, only a few hundred yards away. As I started forward, practically the whole population of the quarter flocked out of the houses and followed me. They had seen the rifle and were all shouting excitedly that I was going to shoot the elephant. They had not shown much interest in the elephant when he was merely ravaging their homes, but it was different now that he was going to be shot. It was a bit of fun to them, as it would be to an English crowd. Besides, they wanted the meat. It made me vaguely uneasy. So here people are coming to see what's going to happen. Orwell versus the elephant. Who's going to win? Somebody's going down. Heck, it's just like the Romans watching what was happening in the Colosseum. It's just like people paying $50 to see UFC fighting live. We all love a good fight. We all are attracted to that kind of thing. Even if you're saying, "Oh, I'm not," when there's a crash or a car wreck or something like that, we all flock to it. We love the bad news, don't we? So they want to see this. It's going to be entertaining. They had not shown much interest in the elephant when he was merely ravaging their homes, but it was different now that he was going to be shot. It was a bit of fun to them, as it would be to an English crowd. Besides, they wanted the meat. It made me vaguely uneasy. I had no intention of shooting the elephant. I had merely sent for the rifle to defend myself if necessary, and it is always unnerving to have a crowd following you. I marched down the hill, looking and feeling a fool, with the rifle over my shoulder and an ever-growing army of people jostling at my heels. "Do it, Orwell! Shoot the elephant! Do it!" Orwell is clearly under some pressure. It's beginning. And we know how that is. Bandwagon philosophy. It's what we call a logical fallacy. Come on. Everybody else is doing it. Why can't we? It's not smart to do that kind of thing. And it's an appeal to the masses, if you will. That's like saying, people like to be healthy. People drink Coca-Cola, therefore Coca-Cola is healthy. The logic's not good whatsoever. So here Orwell is going to be encouraged by a ton of people to shoot the elephant. Doesn't necessarily mean it's right. At the bottom, when you got away from the huts, there was a metalled road, and beyond that a miry waste of paddy fields 1,000 yards across, not yet plowed but soggy from the first rains and dotted with coarse grass. Now here paddy means talking about rice paddies, if you will, and not the racial Irish slur. So we've got to take it from context. The elephant was standing 8 yards from the road, his left side towards us. He took not the slightest note of the crowd's approach. He was tearing up bunches of grass, beating them against his knees to clean them, and stuffing them into his mouth. So it was very clear that the elephant was not in a rage state, right? He was doing what an animal would typically do. Orwell says, "I had halted on the road. As soon as I saw the elephant, I knew with perfect certainty that I ought not to shoot him. It is a serious matter to shoot a working elephant. It is comparable to destroying a huge and costly piece of machinery. And obviously one ought not to do it if it can be possibly avoided." This is still true today, isn't it? If you have had the experience of going to a third world country, for example in Haiti, there are families who depend on their truck for the day's business, to earn the day's income. Maybe driving the truck to escort people. Rather than people having a rental car, they have not only the truck, but they have the driver and maybe family members as well. And if something happens to that truck, then the family doesn't eat. That is the source of the income. Similarly, here we have the elephant being a source of income for one of the Burmese, one of the Dravidians. At that distance, peacefully eating, Orwell says, the elephant looked no more dangerous than a cow. I thought then, and that was a simile as well, than a cow's comparison. I thought then, and I think now, that his attack of must was already passing off, in which case he would merely wander harmlessly about until the mahout, remember the director, came back and caught him. Moreover, I did not in the least want to shoot him. I decided that I would watch him for a little while to make sure that he did not turn savage again, and then go home. But at that moment, I glanced round at the crowd that had followed me. It was an immense crowd. 2,000 at the least. Can you imagine that? 2,000 people pressuring, and growing every minute. It blocked the road for a long distance on either side. I looked at the sea of yellow faces above the garish clothes. Faces all happy and excited over this bit of fun, all certain that the elephant was going to be shot. They were watching me as they would watch a conjurer about to perform a trick. Another simile, as they would watch. They did not like me, but with the magical rifle in my hands, I was momentarily worth watching. And suddenly I realized that I should have to shoot the elephant after all. There was no way out. The people expected it of me, and I had got to do it. I could feel their 2,000 wills pressing me forward irresistibly. And at this moment I stood there with the rifle in my hands, and I first grasped the hollowness, the futility of the white man's dominion in the East. Here was I, the white man with his gun, standing in front of the unarmed native crowd, seemingly the leading actor of the piece. But in reality I was only an absurd puppet pushed to and fro by the will of those yellow faces behind. Great metaphors, right? An actor in the play that's going on, this play of the elephant scene, but really he's a puppet that the people are directing. He becomes a sort of hollow posing dummy, the conventionalized figure of a sahib, for it is the condition of his rule that he shall spend his life in trying to impress the natives. And so in every crisis he has got to do what the natives expect of him. And this is the tyrant of his own freedom, right? He wears a mask and his face grows to fit it. So here he is wearing the mask of the British enforcer, the Imperial Guard, and he's got to act a certain way. But we already know he feels differently deep down, right? A sahib has got to act like a sahib. He has got to appear resolute, to know his own mind, and to do definite things. To come all that way, rifle in hand, with 2,000 people marching at my heels, and then to trail feebly away, having done nothing, that was impossible. The crowd would laugh at me, and my whole life, every white man's life in the East, was one long struggle not to be laughed at. Certainly we can pick out from context too, not to ignore it, a sahib, somebody who's a servant, if you will, of others. In this case, Orwell being a servant not only of the British Empire, but of the Burmese people. That's the end of part 3. We'll pick up with paragraph 8 with part 4 of our analysis of Orwell's Shooting an Elephant.